मैं Charit Jaggi, I want to introduce Charit Jaggi to you ladies and gentlemen. He was a journalist, then he became a social entrepreneur. Now he runs a platform for content creation and for the young. And he was getting a lot of feedback, and what's really interesting is, accidentally, Jaggi realized that the youth in our country is facing the biggest mental health crisis. Why, Jaggi?
Thank you. Check. Yeah. Thank you for having me, and honored to be here. We actually started We the Young with a vision that we want to put out stories of young change makers, and we want to give a platform to young people to voice their stories. What we didn't realize was that almost all the stories that we'd get would be mental health stories, because that is how much young people were yearning to be heard. They were yearning that there should be someone who should listen to them. And when they got this outlet, I had emails, I had messages, I had DMs, I had people who would themselves record their own stories, talk about what they're going through, because there was just no one who was listening to them. Parents are finding it very hard to decode and demystify very complex issues that young people are going through today. Just out of curiosity, if I were to ask anybody over here that what is the National Mental Health Helpline number, I'm sure nobody would know that.
You know, that was going to be my question. Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm sure if I would say, like, what's the national emergency, like your ambulance and your police, everyone knows that number because we are taught that from a very young age. So why is it, and when will it be, that our education system starts like making this a part of our curriculum? So many of schools in tier 1 cities as well, including like I went to a good school in Delhi, and we had counselors, and for the longest time nobody knew who these counselors are. They would be in one room in a setup somewhere, and nobody knew who a counselor is. Nobody knew what to speak to a counselor about. Why do they exist? They would mostly be substituted in classes when teachers would go absent. So I feel like there's such a dearth of awareness, and even when awareness has come in, it has left these wounds open. A lot of young people are scrolling online on social media platforms and discovering that they possibly are going through something. But what happens then? We don't follow up on those. There's so much awareness, there's so much content on mental health online.
So people are talking, we are not listening, or we are pretending not to listen.
Absolutely, and we are not making the genuine effort to sit with a young person and understand, boss, kya dikkat hai?
And troubleshoot for them.
Yeah.
And solve their problem.
Absolutely.
You know, I'll bring in Dr. Shetty back into this conversation, because Dr. Shetty, we spoke about the country having a suicide watch policy. But if you read the policy, it's just not enough, A. Now, how do we ensure that the government fosters a culture of open dialogue where we can have children who will come out, not just express themselves, but know they'll be able to seek help?
I think let's not wait for the government. If I look at the quota centers of the IITs, let IITs have mental health camps as big as Mood Indigo, as big as a Tech Fest. Let us imagine a scene. How many of you have attempted suicides? Put your hands up.
He's asking how many of you ever contemplated suicide?
Whatever, or even attempted. Now, the point is, if I see a scenario, a mental health camp repeatedly happening in these centers, where all the centers come together, and the people who go to the camps are the owners of the centers with their spouses and the kids, stigma breaks. IITs also need to have mental health camps as big as those festivals. And the IIT director goes with his family and does his mental health checkup. That's how the stigma breaks. Giving theory lectures and giving ad hoc answers after suicide will not help. Number 3, what is also very important, my dear friend, is corporates don't have a mental health policy. Does India today have a mental health policy? No. So the third important thing is having a mental health policy. The fourth is counselors in these centers are not tick mark guys or even IITs. Counselors are not supposed to sit in the rooms which you just mentioned. They are supposed to reach out to students in the classroom. Man, talking about anger, talking about love. When they talk about emotions, the kids will come back with an unhealthy issues and seek help. High-risk children will be identified early. Counselors are supposed to go to the hostels, not sit in the rooms, because any illness that has stigma, you have to reach out. Any illness where there is no stigma, the person will come to you. I have malaria, I have fever,
Right.
I have chest pain. Government has ignored mental health policy for a long time, state as well as center. We need to understand that if you ignore mental health policy and mental health work and mental interventions, you are going to bring down the economic productivity of the country. You're going to have lots of social upheavals. You're going to have a lot of family issues. And ultimately, this affects each and every segment of change. So just a suicide policy will not work, but campaign as big as Swachh Bharat, campaign as big as COVID, and campaign as big as... So each one of us have to be part of it. Yoga has to be included, Vipassana has to be included.
And why a campaign as big as Swachh Bharat? Why a campaign as big as COVID? Because once again, look at the sheer numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, by the time this session is over, a young student between the age of 18 to 28 would have taken his life. That's what the data suggests. In a day, we are talking about 35 young people who take their lives in this country on a daily basis. Do tell us if this is not an epidemic.